Welcome back. Uh, let's uh, let's start the chapter 4. Here we are going to learn terminology, important key terms that you will probably see while dealing with your Git repository, and the user understanding of user interface of GitKrane. Okay, so this is your GitKrane, and the first terms which is clone. That means that you want to download a repository from your remote server to your system. So let's create a repository first. So I'm going to create a project, and let's say I'm going to name it as GitKrane, and it is going to be a private. I can initialize with me readme file and create. So this is my repository. If I need to clone it, I basically copy this URL, go here, clone. You need to choose one path. So I'm going to choose this path and type this URL and clone it. That means what is happening here is it created a folder GitKrane. If I go here, I can see one readme file. Why this readme file exists is because when we created this repository, we initiated it with readme file, and you can see that this is a readme file. Yes, so this is the first term. What we did, we basically cloned it. Okay, and basically we created a repository and then we cloned it on our local machine, right? Okay, when we create any repository, it create a default branch which is master. Okay, so this is a default branch. You can assume that a branch is like a folder in a repository. Okay, it consists your files and everything. So now let me give you a brief understanding of all these terminology in a graphical way. So assume that this is our repo, means repository, GitLab. Okay, when I say this, that means your this folder. Okay, so in repository, when you create it, by default it consists master branch. Now this is a branch. Okay, when you clone a repository, sorry about my writing. Okay, so what you're doing, you basically cloning it on one PC or your system. This also going to have the same branch, which is going to be master. Now what happens? Okay, let me redraw it. Okay, so let me give you a very brief understanding of all those technology and practical understanding of it. So let's say this is your repository, which is basically your GitLab repository. When you create it, by default you create a master branch, and when any user who have the access to the repository, when they clone it, uh, sorry, when they clone it, they on their system, let's say we call it as PC1, they will also have the master branch. And when you make some changes to this master branch, and when you make changes to the files, you have to make commits, which is, I guess we have to call it as commit. This is also an important term. Okay, so when you make a commit, let's say there was a file A, the same file was downloaded here, and then you added one more file B. Now you have a master with file A and B. Now if you want to basically store this change as a log, you have to make a commit. Okay, so commit means you're creating a log with the changes which you have done. This will still remain on your local machine, and now if you want to upload it to the remote server, basically here, then you have to make a push. Okay, so this term is called as a push. See all, and you will see that there is a term as a push, right? Now assume somebody else also want to clone this repository. So somebody else also cloned this repository on PC2, and of course when they cloned it, they will have master branch, and which will initially, if they cloned it before this push, then they will have file A. Yes. Now later when this commit is done, sorry, this push is done, then if they want to have A plus B update, then what they have to do, they need to pull. Okay, pull. Now this is a term here which is known as pull. Okay, and now they will have A plus B file, and let's say now from here this user had added one more file with C, and so that means the file A plus B plus C, these are the files exist, and they want to make a log of it, then they have to commit. Okay, and if they want to upload this this commit to this repository, then they have to make a push. Okay, this is the basic understanding of clone And branches is basically, again I said that branches is basically a folder. For example, here this is one folder, and then you can basically create more branches from master, like develop, which will have the content of this, of the source branch. So for example, if you create a branch after this A and B commit, then this branch will also have the content A plus B. Okay, so and then you have to push it to create a branch on the remote server, remote repository. Okay, so this is the branch. And checkout. Okay, what is the meaning of checkout is, if you want, okay, let me remove this all and then I'll explain you what is the meaning of checkout. Assume this is your, again, server repo, and you downloaded it, you cloned the repository, so clone the repository on your PC, and let's assume that this, or maybe let me explain you with other. So here is our repo, which is having master branch, and along with master branch it has, let's say master branch has content of A, and there are two other branches. Assume one is develop and other is, let's say, release. These can be any other, the name of the branches can be anything, and let's say this branch has content A plus B, and this branch has A plus C. Now when you clone this repository on your PC, that will create a folder with the repository name or repository name. Now initially this will have the content of master. Okay, so what will be the content in this folder? You will find that the folder is the content of the folder will have a file. Okay, now if you want to check out means you want to move to some other branch, so you basically check out to develop branch. I will give you practical understanding in the coming chapters. If you check out basically you are trying to move from master branch to develop branch. Now the same folder, now because you checked out in the develop branch, now the same folder is going to have the content A plus B. But then you, let's say, checked out to release, so now the same folder is going to have the content A plus C. Okay, so in the same folder the content will change based on where you checked out in the branches. Okay, so checkout is basically you are changing the content of that specific folder to the content of the branch. Okay, I have explained the commit. Fetch or pull, basically both are same meaning. It's basically download the updates from the remote repository to your local repository. Okay, then the push I have already explained. Rebase is something which I need to explain you. So let's say, what is rebase? So let's say this is your remote repository, and somebody cloned the repository on the PC, and at the same time, so they are into master branch, and at the same time somebody else also downloaded PC2 and PC1 and the same repository. And here this user, let's say it has a file A, and this user add one more file B and post it. So now the repository have two files. Master branch has two files, A and B, but on this machine there is only file A. Now to download this repository, you have to make a pull at yes, you have to make a pull request. And then let's say what is happening, this user created a new branch. So now this will have A plus B, created a new branch as develop. Now this repository is going to have, this branch is going to have A and B file, right? In the meantime, what happens, this user add one more file C and pushed it. So now this is going to have C file as well, and if this user makes a pull request, what will happen, the master branch will have one more file which is C, but in our develop branch where this user is checked out, it only have A and B. But now assume that the work on this repository is requires file C. So what we will do, we will basically rebase this repository with master. So when you rebase it, what will happen, this repository, develop repository, will have the latest content of the branch with which it is being rebased. So now after the rebase, it's going to have the content of A plus B plus C. Okay, so this is the meaning of rebase. And there is a one more important term that is called as merge. Okay, now you see that our master branch here have file A plus B plus C. Okay, So rebase means getting the latest update from another branch to the current branch. This is rebase. Now here we have a content, because after rebase we have a plus b plus c, and let's say user added one more file which is, let's say, d, and it is being committed to the develop branch, committed now, and maybe that can be posted to our repository, remote repository as well. So this will have one more branch which is develop, which will have the content a plus b plus c plus d. Okay, now what will happen if you want to merge the code of this repository, this branch into master, you will make a merge request. Okay, when you will make a merge request, the final output of master branch will be a plus b plus c plus d. Yes, why? Because the files of a plus b and c is already there. And see, I'm talking about at the moment files to make it simple, but let's say there is a possibility that this user, instead of adding d file, maybe they change the content of c. So if the content is changed, then, and when we will try to merge the develop branch into master, what will happen? The content of c will be updated based on what is the content of both of the file. Now during this merge request, there is a possibility that, let's say, on line number 1 of C file, on line number 1 there is a content, let's say 1. Okay, and here they changed on line number 1 as 2. So when you try to merge these files, the content will that will create a conflict. Why? Because on this branch, on line number 1, the content is 1, while on line number 1 in the develop branch, the content is 2. So Git will not know that which content we have to keep it in the final outcome. So this is called as a conflict. Okay, now you can resolve this manually by making sure that whether you want to keep this one or this one, or you can basically change the file on line number 1 as 1 and make the line number 1 of this repo as line number 2 in the final output. So this way you can merge. So there are various merging methodology or merging techniques which you can see and make decisions based on what is what is required in the output. So these are the terminology which I think I have covered all the terms. And even if you are feeling confused, don't worry, I am going to make it extremely simple and make sure that you understand what I'm trying to explain here. But all of this will start making sense when I will do it practically. But at least by now you should be able to understand what is the meaning of clone. That means downloading the repository from the remote repository or server. Branch is basically your folders like master, develop, release. Checkout is basically changing the content of your repository folder from one branch to another branch. So when you check out from one branch to another branch, the content of the folder will change, and you can work on those things. Commit is basically creating a log of the files that have changed. Okay. Fetch or pull means to download the latest update. Push is basically uploading the changes to the remote repository. Rebasing is getting the latest code or content from the other branch. Fast forward is probably you don't need at this point, just ignore it. Merge is basically merging the content of current repository into current branch into the other branch. Conflict, when you merge and two file have the same content on the same line number, then it will create a conflict and you have to resolve it. Okay, now in next chapter we'll learn about initializing the git flow.